Hi, I'm Marcus with the IndieMusicLab.com. So I would say over the past couple years, possibly the video or the type of video that has garnered the most interest out of all the PDF guides and course videos and YouTube videos is my three-step compression system. Now, this three-step compression system for vocals is something that I sort of stumbled on a couple years ago, and when I created it, I was like, okay, this is really gonna work, and I ended up really using that formula for quite a long period of time after that. However, in recent months, there have been some changes into how I approach this system, and I wanted to share that with you today. So in this video, I'm gonna bring you in behind the scenes, and I'm gonna show you exactly what my process looks like for creating really good compression on your vocals so that you can get this big three, the big three qualities that compression adds to your vocals, and that is balance, glue, and punch. So let's dive in, and I'm gonna show you how to use compressors to really make your vocals sound better. All right, so let's dive into this little session that I have here. This is my song Jessica, and I have the instrumental track up here, and I have the vocal tracks here, since this session here is specifically for one of the videos in my Wow Factor Vocals course. So I'm really focusing in on the vocals in this session. And I went ahead and muted the original processed vocal, which is here on this lead vocals bus with all these plugins. We're not going to worry about that. We're not going to talk through that today because we're only focusing on this three-step compression system. So I duplicated the original audio, this dry vocal track here, and that sounds like this. Embers on your tongue, they're burning my eyes. And then in the context of the mix, she's the prettiest firefly. So that is just the dry vocal, and that's what I'm going to use to really make this path very clear to you. And we're not going to mess with reverb or adding any of those types of things. We're only going to look at compressions on this dry vocal track. So the first step in this three-step compression system, there are three parts to it. Let me actually walk you through the three, and then we'll dive into the first one. It's a balance compressor, a glue compressor, and a punch compressor. So balance, glue, and punch. So generally, I like to correspond these three ingredients with actual instances of compressors. So I don't usually just use one compressor on a lead vocal. I usually use two or three. So let me show you what that looks like. Now, the first compressor is the balance compressor, as I just mentioned. So balance is very important because the main thing that a compressor does in a lot of ways is simply turn down the volume, and specifically turn down the loud parts, because depending on where you set the threshold, it shoots down the loud parts. And here's what happens when we're talking about balance compression. Let's say your lead vocal, the loudest note or the loudest volume part of the song or of that vocal take is up here. Let's say the quietest part is here. What a compressor does is, so, let's say the vocal level is bouncing up and down. What a compressor does is it shoots down those loud parts. So wherever you set the threshold, any volume level that goes above that, it shoots it down. That way, the overall dynamic range from the loudest part to the quietest part is now, loudest part is now here instead of here, but the quietest part is still here. So now that there's less dynamic range and it's more of a balanced sound. The vocal is more present and more up front, and you don't, lose the vocal and then it comes back and then you lose it. That is what balance compression does. It takes care of those big gaps. Now, you might be wondering, okay, if it simply turns down the loud parts, well, then everything is lower in volume, and that's technically true, but then all you need to do is just turn the entire vocal track up, and then you get a nice volume that sits much better in the mix. Okay, so that is the entire purpose of balance compression, is we want to add a compressor to your vocal that simply focuses on turning down those peaks, those loud parts, so that they can come a bit more into alignment with everything else. Now, throughout this video, I'm going to show you two different approaches to adding these ingredients to your vocal through compression. And I'm going to show you one example using just a stock compressor. So every DAW has a stock compressor. Most of them are really good. Like the one I have here in my DAW Studio One, it's just a solid compressor. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. But then I'm also going to show you my approach, my preferred approach, which is using analog modeled compressor plugins. So to start, let me show you what my approach looks like using a compressor, focusing on the balance aspect. So for this, I'm going to pull in my fat channel here in Studio One, and we'll focus in on just the compressor. So as you can see here, we've got a bunch of different options here as far as which compressor I would want to use inside the fat channel here in Studio One. And when it comes to the balance compressor, what did I just say? We're trying to shoot down the loud parts, right? We're trying to bring everything into a tighter volume so that it's not like this and then like this. We're trying to, bring everything in so that the vocal is always present. So that tells us then the type of compressor we probably want is a pretty aggressive compressor. We want a compressor that is going to be like peak, bam, shoot it down, bam, shoot it down, so that the volume level can become can be put in its proper place. So with that in mind, my go-to compressor for this is an 1176 style compressor. Now, Waves has a bunch of these compressors. Slate Digital has a bunch of these if you have Slate's subscription package. And here in Studio One, their version of an 1176 style FET compressor is this compressor right here. Now, the thing about an 1176 style compressor is it's a very fast attack. And what a fast attack means is it just shoots down. It acts very quickly when those loud peaks come through. And fast attack generally corresponds to aggression as well. It's a very aggressive compressor. So if we come over here to this vocal, let's kind of focus in on the chorus part. Right here, right now. Won't you stay? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to mess with the knobs here until we get some compression happening. Right now, won't you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica. Oh, right here, right now. Won't you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica. Oh, Jessica, won't you stay? Jessica, Jessica, oh, won't you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica, oh, yeah. So as you can see, if you're really watching this needle here, you're starting to really notice what is happening and what this compressor is doing. Whenever the vocal comes through and you have those louder parts, it shoots it down in volume and it puts everything into a more balanced state. So then, here's without the compressor. And then here's with it. So as you can hear there, everything is starting to feel more balanced. And that is the power of an 1176 style compressor, or just generally speaking, when you're going for balance and volume control, you generally want a fast attack and a fast release. So here I have, it doesn't really matter where I put this attack, it's going to be fast. So this is really fast over here, and this is the slowest that it goes, but that's still, it's like 1 millisecond, which is still quite fast. So no matter where it goes, it's going to be a fast compressor. So I'm going to go right about down the middle is usually a good place for what I like. And then the release, I just went as fast as it goes, which is 50 milliseconds. Because also when you're talking about volume control and balance is we're not trying to massage this vocal and really kind of create a smooth type of compression. We want more of an aggressive compression. So as soon as that loud part is no longer there, we want the compressor to let go of the audio. We don't want to overly affect the vocal track outside of creating more balance and really dialing in better volume control overall. Okay, so that is the purpose of a balance compressor. Fast attack, fast release, and in my case, I love using 1176 style compressors. Now, you might say, okay, that's fair, that sounds good, but I don't have a compressor that looks like this. I only use, my stock compressor in Ableton or Logic or whatever. And that's completely okay. And I'm going to show you what that would look like using a stock compressor. So I've muted the other one here. So now let's just focus in on using a stock compressor to get this balance compressor effect. So we're going to go, again, fast attack, fast release, something like this probably, and then I'll dial in the threshold here.
Right here, right now. Won't you stay? Jessica, Jessica. Oh, won't you stay? Jessica, Jessica. Oh, yeah. For you. Right here, right now.
So here is the meter. You can see that gain reduction happening right here.
Won't you stay?
And we're hitting about, 6 to 8 dB on the loudest parts. And then overall, most of the time, when it's being activated, it's around the 2 to 3 dB range. And then sometimes it's not being activated at all, and that's completely okay. You don't have to get the volume completely perfect. You still generally will need to do a little bit of volume automation as well, which means you go in and you might turn up one word and just for that word have that be a little louder in volume using automation. But this video isn't about automation, but compression really does make your life so much easier because it minimizes how much automation you then need to do. Among other things, compression also really adds the glue and the punchiness and all of those qualities to the vocal as well. So now, real quick, let me show you the difference between my Fat Channel 1176 style compressor.
Jessica, Jessica.
And then here is the stock compressor.
Oh, won't you stay? Jessica, Jessica. Oh, yeah. Right here, right now. Won't you stay?
There's by no means a big difference there, right? There's by no means a difference that your listener would be like, oh, if only the compression was different, or if only the plugin was different. Like the stock compressor works completely fine in this case, and so that's why I'm showing you both, just to really give you an understanding of that. So that is the balance compressor. Now let's move on to the glue compressor. And the purpose of a glue compressor is to, in some ways, almost massage that vocal. So we've already done some aggressive compression on it by really shooting down those spikes and those loud parts, right? Now what we want to do is to start to really massage this vocal, and we want to make it so that it fits really well and so that it is affected in such a way that it can make the song and the overall production feel a bit more vibey and smooth, right? And so let's come back. Let's turn on this fat channel here, which is our balance compressor. And now we're going to focus on adding a compressor that has a bit more of that massage-like quality to it. So let's come in here and I'm going to add another instance of the fat channel. And there are a few compressors in this library here that are just really, really cool, that just sound awesome and that have that smooth character to it. So let's go for maybe the classic compressor. This is a pretty smooth compressor here. And we'll see what this one does.
Right here, right now. Won't you stay? Jessica, Jessica. Oh, won't you stay? Jessica, Jessica. Oh, yeah. Won't you stay?
Okay, now an important thing about this glue compressor here is we're not so much focusing on aggressive compression. In fact, we're focusing on the opposite. We want more of a subtle compression. Again, think about it like a massage. You're massaging this vocal. I know I keep using that word, but it's such a great metaphor to use, or a great analogy is you're massaging this vocal track by using this second compressor, and it really helps glue everything together and makes it fit much better in the context of the instrumental and everything else. But we're not doing as much compression. As you can see here, this needle is hanging out. It's not always even activated. Sometimes it's at 1, 2, 3. It's not really going past that.
Right now.
So here's without it.
Won't you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica.
And then here's with it.
Won't you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica. Oh, yeah.
It might still be a little bit much, so I'm going to ease off in that threshold.
Won't you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica.
It adds some presence to it. It just feels like it's a bit more glued, like it has more of a cohesive sound to it. And that's the purpose of a glue compressor, the second compressor here. So now let me show you very quickly. Again, if you only have a stock compressor, that's completely fine. And I'm going to show you what that could look like using a stock compressor. Now, real quick though, let's come back to this one to show you something. Notice how this doesn't have a traditional attack and release knob like most compressors do. Instead, you have a recovery knob, which is basically just a release knob, I presume. I think that's all that is. So the attack, it seems, is already built into this compressor. It's like a preset. The attack is already, no matter what you run through this compressor, the attack time is going to be exactly the same. So it already has that locked in, and then this recovery, I presume, just means release. And the release on this glue compressor, you want it generally to be a bit slower, or at least not slow in the grand scheme of things, but just slower than what we did with the balance compressor. The balance compressor, fast attack, fast release. For the glue compressor, it's generally a good idea to go medium attack, medium release. And so if you're looking, what that might look like on a stock compressor, let me show you what that could look like here. What that might look like on a stock compressor is perhaps something around 20 to 30 milliseconds, and then maybe around 50 milliseconds on the release time. And then if you come in here,
Jessica, Jessica. Oh, won't you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica. Oh, yeah. Right here, right now.
here's without
Won't
it.
you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica. Oh,
And then here's with it.
won't you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica. Oh, yeah.
This has a very similar type of effect. Now here I'm starting to hear some differences for sure in terms of the tonality between, or the tonal differences between this compressor.
Right here, right now. Won't you stay?
I think I turned this one up a little bit too much.
Oh, Jessica, Jessica.
Right, so that's that compressor. Now here's the stock compressor again.
Won't you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica.
Now, again, when you're hearing this in context with that instrumental, which I'm doing that on purpose, I'm not doing a bunch of soloing here. Soloing doesn't really matter. I mean, I still might use a bit of, here in a minute, I might solo the lead vocal so you can really hear what it's sounding like in isolation. But there's a reason that this entire video so far, I'm playing this vocal with the instrumental tracks, because that is what matters. You need to be able to distinguish what you are hearing and hear it in context with the rest of the mix. And again, there's not a huge difference in terms of an analog modeled compressor like I'm using and a stock compressor. So you can by all means use stock compressors. That should not be holding you back from making great vocals and mixing great vocals. So now that we have that, so we have our balance compressor, we have our glue compressor. Now we come and we bring this home, and the third part of this process in this three-step compression system is the punch compressor. Now, this used to be kind of a, I wouldn't say non-negotiable, but I used to do this on pretty much every track. I would have the balance compressor, the glue compressor, and the punch compressor. Recently, though, I've started to realize that on a lot of tracks, once you get the balance compressor and the glue compressor, you're kind of already set. So what I'll often do is I'll add a balance compressor, I'll add a glue compressor, and then I'll focus on other aspects of the vocal mix for a while. So I might add some EQ, I might add some saturation, some reverb, some delays. I'll just, dial in the mix since I have a solid compression starting point with the balance and the glue compressors. Then I focus on everything else. Then if I listen to the mix in context and by that point, after I've added some other things, I'm like, I still think we need some more punch. We need some more compression. That is when I would then go and add a punch compressor. But I would say in a lot of ways, the third compressor here is optional because often if you do it right, you only need the first two. But let's say that, I come to the end of this mix and I'm going to actually drag in because I've already mixed the vocal on this before, and I'm going to drag in the EQ, maybe drag in some of the other things that I initially added to this vocal track, maybe some saturation. And now let's see what we got.
Won't you stay?
And let's also send it to some reverb, right? Really try to get a feel for what this could sound like in the context of this mix here.
Oh, Jessica, Jessica. Oh, won't you stay?
Now we have some pretty bad S's popping through, so let me add the de-esser as well.
Right now, won't you stay?
Now there's still some EQ work that would need to be done on this, but I want to show you real quickly what my approach would be if we've added some if we added some of those other effects like EQ, saturation, reverb, delay, and then if we were to come in here and add another compressor, I would probably go for a 1176 style compressor again if I was trying to add some punch again. Now I might not make the attack quite as fast, I might go as slow as it goes, even though, as I mentioned before, no matter where the attack knob is here, it's still a fast attack. And then I'll probably go somewhere in here with the release. Pretty fast release. These things are touchy. See, that is really taking it over the top. That's really adding that punch to this vocal. Here's without it.
Right here, right now, won't you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica. Oh,
and here's with it.
Won't you stay? Oh, Jessica, Jessica.
So there you go. That is the punch compressor. And again, you can obviously do that with a stock compressor as well, or you can experiment with any other types of compressors. Now, another thing to keep in mind is this is also a reason why I wait to add that third compressor, the punch compressor, until later, if I even add it, is because other plugins like saturation, I don't know if you ever thought about this, but saturation is also a form of compression. So if you end up using some distortion or saturation on your vocal, that is also compressing your vocal. So that is why I like to keep that third compressor on hold, just keep it on call, if you will. That way it's there if we need it. I'll pull it in if I need it, but sometimes I just simply don't. And the compression on my vocals are sufficient the way they are with just the first two. So there you go. That is my three-step vocal compression system updated here in 2023. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.